Hi, Kim Raynor here from All About Spirits Life After Cancer, and I want to welcome you to this week's episode. And when we're given a cancer diagnosis, we are thrown curveballs. And I created Life After Cancer to help bridge the gap between what your medical team can do for you and what they offer, and what you really need to be able to move on with your life after your cancer diagnosis. So today's episode is episode 3 in a series called Embracing Wholeness in the Face of Cancer. And this episode is actually called Understanding Cancer. And, it would be nice if we could just avoid cancer by learning about it, by studying it, by understanding it. But it doesn't really work that way. In a lot of ways today, today's boogeyman is cancer. There is this fear when you hear the word, especially when it's associated with you or someone you love, right? There's this fear that's attached to that. And we don't get to sidestep cancer by avoiding it. And, there's aspects of cancer that we as human beings are challenged environmentally on a regular basis. We have physical challenges, there are emotional challenges, spiritual, intellectual, and really understanding cancer, really owning that. It's going to take us standing, especially if we've been diagnosed, to really stand and look our diagnosis in the eye and to look at cancer and really look at cancer. And listen to what the message of cancer is for us in our lives. And, in a lot of ways, it really is the disease of the ages, the current environment that we're living in. The exhaust from cars. We know that it's carcinogenic. The picture-perfect fruits and vegetables that we have. I'm not going to buy an apple that has a blemish on it. I'm not going to buy tomatoes that have blemishes on them, right? Those are environmental contributors to our cancer. All of the plastic bottles that we keep buying and throwing away. Every time we throw one away and we choose not to recycle it. Every time we buy one of those little 8-ounce plastic bottles instead of refilling a water jug, a reusable jug with filtered water, that impacts it. We have ways that we contribute on a regular basis to our collective risk for cancer. And it's believed that about 80% of cancer occurrences today are based on an environmental influence, which is astounding to me. There's obvious influences. There's, tobacco and asbestos and things like, talcum powder and access to the sun. So those are obvious contributors to cancer. And then there's the hidden ones, which are, the high-fat diets that so many of us eat. There's stress, which just the nature of stress on our bodies, it literally inhibits our cells from being able to fight or deal with malignant cancer cells. And then there's the really complex processes, right? Some of the things that we control and some of the things that we can't control. And, if you think about the Serenity Prayer, it goes, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. When we think about that prayer, it can be helpful in looking at cancer and the environment of cancer and saying, okay, what can I change? What can't I change? And how do I discern the difference? So if we look at our experience with cancer, what are some of the things that we can change? Well, we can certainly change the food that we eat. We can stop eating, fast food drive-through foods. We can shop the perimeter of the grocery store and buy the healthy groceries, whole, real foods, organic. We can grow our own foods, right? So we can control that. We can quit smoking. We can not chew tobacco. We can impact that. We can pay attention to the things that we do with our senses. What are we inhaling? What are we tasting? What are we touching? What does our environment look like? So we have influence over that. We can choose in every moment, do we want to have something that's in our life that's life affirming, or are we just going to take the easy way, what feels good, what goes quickly? And we can take actions to either choose the life affirming things and eliminate toxins, or to continue on business as usual and just ignore the toxins that go on in our lives. So that's some of the stuff that's within our control. Then we have this whole layer of things that are not within our control, right? And it used to be believed that our genetic constitution was completely out of our control, but I actually read an article last week that talked about the DNA is perhaps only a portion of our health, that everything isn't written in the DNA code, that we actually have, nature has a bigger influence than was originally thought in the process of our bodies and our capacities and our ability to heal. So more will be revealed about that. But for right now, our genetic constitution in a lot of ways, if we have the BRCA1 gene, we are genetically predisposed to getting breast cancer. We know that. If we have a long history of prostate cancer in our families, right? There's a genetic predisposition to having prostate cancer. We don't have any control over that. So the inherited vulnerability of illness, we don't have any control over that. In most cases, we don't really have control over the air we breathe. We don't have control over the water we drink, the chemicals that are in our soil. In a lot of cases, we don't have any control over our work environment. We need to work, so we go and do that. We don't have control over the electrical fields that surround us. I mean, we might in some cases. We can minimize our Wi-Fi access. We can minimize our use of radio, microwaves and stuff like that if we're concerned about that. But mostly those entities, they really represent our collective tolerance for a toxic environment. They represent a collective tolerance for what we as a society are willing to accept. And as our personal awareness starts to be raised, as we start to look personally at our relationship to Earth and to the impact that we have on Earth, we start to pay attention to the ecology. We get to start to have an impact on some of those collective things that right now we don't have necessarily a lot of influence over. There definitely seems to be a reawakening towards paying attention to more of those social justices, and that as that moves more towards critical mass, we will be less tolerant of plastic bottles. We'll be less tolerant of everybody having their own car and having to drive by themselves. We will start to pay attention to the benefits of mass transportation, perhaps. And as that unfolds, our standards are going to be increased, and we'll make a commitment to improve our relationship with Earth. And as that environmental purity becomes more important to us, we're going to transform our environments, and that is going to have a social impact on our susceptibility for cancer as a whole. And that will help us put cancer into a new light. So as we continue on with today's episode, right, one of the things that I want to talk about is the message that cancer brings to us as individuals and to us as a society, and it raises some questions for us. What is the deeper meaning of cancer? And what does cancer tell us personally and as a society about the way that we're living? What can we do to change the impact that cancer has on us as individuals and that cancer has on us as a community? And there's no easy answer to these questions. They're big questions, and they're questions that really need to be asked. So I really hope that they motivate you to start to take a look at your life and to say, okay, what kind of changes can I make? That was really the underpinning. That was the beginning of my body, mind, spirit, environment healing after my cancer diagnosis. And, trying to search that stuff out, trying to navigate that stuff out is really a worthy cause. And as you walk through it, there might be parts of it that are scary, but there is the potential for unimaginable treasures, unimaginable richness that can come out of that. So, my hope is that you take time between now and our next week's episode to really ask yourself, to really get motivated to say, when I look within my heart and I look within my soul, what do I see to the answers? What do I see as answers to the questions? What is the deeper meaning of cancer in my life? Does it mean that I need to change my personal relationship with my environment? Does it mean that I need to change my relationship with the environment at large? What does that mean? And in our next episode, we're going to actually start to take a look at what happens to the body and how does it respond when it's healthy, and what happens and how does it respond when it's not healthy. So I hope that you will tune in and join me next week as we join into I guess that'll be the 4th episode in the series, Embracing Wholeness in the Face of Cancer. And until then, I hope that if you found something in today's show that was helpful to you, that you will like this, that you'll share it on Facebook. You can leave your comments below. I'd love to hear about the things that you do to change your environment, to change your individual relationship with some of the things that have been impacted by your cancer journey. So thanks for being here today, and until we actually have a chance to meet or talk, I hope that life treats you well. Take care.